Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ayu Tipany. Now I want to explain about the language testing and listening skills. But before I go to explain about the language testing and listening skills, I want to explain about the listening definition. What is listening? Listening skills is the ability to accurately receive and interpret message in the communication process. Listening is key to all effective communication because without ability to listen effectively, messages are easily misunderstood. And now, listening is not same with hearing. It means paying attention not only on the story, but uh, how it is told and how use of language and voice, and then is how the other person use his or her body. And next is listening is not passive process, but listening is active process. Active listening means not only focusing fully on the speaker, but also activity showing verbal or non-verbal sign of listening, such as smile and then is eye contact and etc. Okay, for the next I want to explain about the listening test. Testing listening involves a variety of skills. At the lowest level, it involves discrimination among sounds and then discrimination among intonation and stress patterns and comprehension of short and long listening texts. Okay, there are several listening tests. First is testing phoneme discrimination. There are several ways to test phoneme discrimination. That is ability to tell the difference between different sounds. Alternatively, the test could be presented with 4 pictures and be asked to choose the picture that match the word that they hear. Another possibility is to give tester 3 words and ask them to indicate which 2 are the same. And finally, test can listen to a spoken sentence and be asked to identify which one of 4 similar words were used in the sentence. This type of discrimination item is one that can be used for diagnostic purpose to see whether students have particular problems with distinguishing between phonemes. However, it does not give the teacher any information about the test's ability to comprehend spoken English. Okay, for the next I want to explain about the discriminating stress and intonation. The tests are instructed to indicate the words that carries the main stress of the sentence, while recognizing stress patterns is useful in English. The problem with this type that is it lacks a context. Tests need to show that they can recognize difference between, for example, John is going today. John is going today, but they do not need to show that they understand that there is a difference in the meanings of the 2 sentences or what the difference is. Ability to understand the meaning of difference in intonation can be tested by having the test listen to a statement and choose from 3 interpretations of the statement. For example, test might be given the statement, Vera is wonderful musician, and be asked to decide whether the speaker is making a straightforward statement or a sarcastic statement, or a question statement. Since the context is neutral, however, it is sometimes difficult to avoid ambiguity. In real communication, listeners make use of their background and knowledge, the context, and etc., as well as the intonation to help them interpret the communicative meaning of an utterance. Okay, for the next I want to explain about the understanding sentences and dialogues. As a teacher, can also test the students' understanding of individual sentences and dialogues. In the simple form, this type of item consists of a single sentence which tests, listen to, and for written statements from which they choose the one meaning is closest to the original spoken sentence. For example, the spoken said, "I had hoped to visit you while I was in New York." And the written must be chose the one closest in meaning of the spoken sentence. For example, A. I was in New York but did not visit you. Or B. I will be in New York and hope to visit you. Or C. I visited you in New York and hope to again. And or D. I am in New York and would like to visit you. Another type of item is one in which the test listen to an utterance and choose from among four responses the most appropriate response. In that case, the tests are not being asked directly what the meaning of the utterance is. Rather, they are being asked to show they know what it means by showing that they recognize an appropriate response. This test both tests listening ability and their knowledge of appropriate second pair parts of agency pairs. An example of this type of item is as follows. Spoken said, "Would you mind if I visited you next time I came to New York?" And the written must be chosen. A. Yes, of course, I would love to visit New York. Or B. No, I don't really think that much of New York. Or C. Yes, I would. You can come anytime. Or D. No, not at all. I would really love to have you. In this example, the test needs to know that would you mind if I is a form used for ask the permission, and that a positive response begins with no, I don't mind, because this type of item requires two different type of information. There is a certain amount controversy about it. Some theorists argue that it is not good item type because it requires this two type knowledge. Tests could possibly understand the utterance perfectly well but not know how to respond to it. Also, since the utterance are presented in isolation and out of context, the situation is not realistic. However, this type of item can be useful if these limitations are kept in mind. It is a more communicative type of task than many listening tasks. So it may have beneficial backwash effects, and it is relatively easy to administer.
Okay, now I will explain about understanding sentence and dialogue. A teacher can also test the student's understanding of individual sentence and dialogue. In the simplest form, this type of item consists of a single sentence which test listen to and for written statement from which they choose the one close in meaning to the original spoken sentence. And for the example in spoken, the sentence is I had hoped to visit you while I was in New York. And in written, the statement any for and the first statement is I was in New York but didn't visit you, and the second statement is I will be in New York and hope to visit you, and the third statement is I visit you in New York and hope to again, and the last statement is I'm in New York and would like to visit you. And the answer is will be the second statement because this statement is one of close in the meaning to the original spoken sentence. And the next is tags using visual material. First, matching and true or false tags. Some types of tags make use of visual material along with the spoken material to test listening. The simplest form of these tags is to present text with a picture or the other visual, for example a chart, graph, and etc., along with spoken true or false statement. And the advantage of using visual material in this way is that they can be used to test listening alone without involving other skill very much, though it is impossible to entirely eliminate to the use of other skill. And the next is map text. And the next is map text. Another way to use visual material in testing listening is to use map. One activity involves having test listen to direction for how to get somewhere and follow along on the map. They respond by drawing their route or indicating where they would be at the end of the direction. And the third is drawing task. Tasks can also to drawing tasks according to instruction. They can be given a simple line drawing and be asked to complete it according to certain instruction. For the example, the task can be present with a diagram for a mom with the bed represented by a rectangular square, and we asked to add a table, a bookcase, a door, and etc. in a certain location in the room. It is important to keep such activity simple so that the drawing task itself doesn't demand too much of tasks. And the next is about tasks involving talks and lectures. One way of using talks in listening tests is to have the test listen to the talk and then fill in the blanks in a written summary of the talk. The words choose for blanks should be ones that the test cannot figure out from the content of the summary without listening to the talk, but they should be also be ones that are related to the main idea of the talk, so that filling in the blank does not require remembering small details of the talk. Another way doing this involves giving test questions to answer as they listen to the talk. This question can be short answer or completion, multiple choice, or true or false.
In this video, I'm gonna talk about the oral production test. So, if you want testing the language skill, especially testing the listening skill, you can use the oral test. Oral communication test is generally rated so highly in language learning. In the oral production test, there are many kind of tests that we can use to testing the language skill. Okay, for the first, there is using picture for assessing oral production. Okay, for example, you are as a teacher, you give them the picture and then you comment to them to look at the picture and tell what is happening. And then number 2 is oral interview. For example, you are having a job interview. As candidate, you must answer the question given by the interviewer. And number 3, there is the short talk. For example, asking information about where the post office is. And number 4, group discussion. You, as a teacher, command them to discuss about the topic and then presenting in the front of the class. And the last is role play. Okay, that's enough about the oral production test. There is a 5 way that we can use to testing the language skills, especially listening skill. Number 1 is we can using the picture for assessing the oral production test. Number 2, oral interview. Number 3, the short talk. Number 4, group discussion. And the last is role play. Okay, thank you so much for watching my video. Have a nice day and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.